Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, Saturday Night Live style. Thank you for tuning in. We also want to thank everyone for your continuous support. The Grand Solar Minimum channel. As you all know, we had a discussion with Valentina Sarkova about her latest paper that is published in nature.com on June 24th of 2019. And again, I can't thank you enough to all the listeners and the viewers out there who watched this video and are sharing it right now. A lot of you understand what's happening, and it's just it's good to see that the message is finally now starting to get through a little bit. And I'm starting tonight like this just because I just want to show my appreciation to our supporters out there, our people who follow this channel. And you guys give great insight as well. We've got several GSM contributors to the channel. Special shout out tonight to Matt Bros out in Nebraska.
Starman's in the chat.
Starman, of course, your work has been detrimental. Scott Chapman, back to Matt real quick. And brother, I really appreciate your video footage. I'm learning a lot about some of the minor things in farming, that's for sure, and it is fascinating. Please continue to send me that footage. It will become useful. Matt has given us permission to share it, so I want to show a couple things from that, but that won't happen tonight. But again, I just want to thank all of our subscribers, our followers, people who contribute to this channel, and it's this continuing to work together and keeping what's important in front of you, and don't let anything else distort that message. And that's been Zarkova's attitude. If you watched her presentation in from October of 2018, and she gets that little, you know what happens to people when they say things they're not supposed to, and she fights right back, and she says, "I'm not scared. I don't care what others say about what I should or shouldn't say." That was her response to the host, who made it, which almost sounded like a threatening gesture to me. But anyway, let's get going with the show. We could talk more about Zarkova. Again, checking out our space weather right now. Our solar wind speed sitting at a 319.2 kilometers per second with a density of 6.5. And we are blank again, but there is a small area of a sunspot that's trying to emerge here on the disk, according to SPACEWEATHER.com. They have it circled. As you see, barely can see this dark core if it is emerging at all. As of right now, we are still 0 and 1 day without sunspots so far, bringing us up to 110 days for the year. Let's take a look at some more space weather stats here at the grandsolarminimum.com. Our solar proton flux, X-ray flux, very low, and our KP indices sitting at a 1. And we actually had a all-time, or not all-time, but a 0 KP earlier today as well. So very low KP indices, very low solar wind right now. It's safe to say that we're probably looking at some more 6.5 to 7 point magnitude earthquakes in the upcoming future here within the next 2 to 4 days. And part of this too, we will have solar winds affecting our Earth's magnetic field by around July 4th. And this is the culprit. Let's see if my arrow is up tonight. Is it? I don't think it is. Boo. All right. Well, you guys can see the coronal hole that's right there just south of the equatorial region. That is what's expected to affect us on July 3rd and July 4th. And imagine if you live in an area where you can spot auroras during this time, what an awesome sight this would be during 4th of July. I want to note here on the edge of the eastern limb, watch the very beginning, we see a filament release. And that is not Earth facing, but it is very clear here at the very eastern, right there. You guys can see something flying off there. So fortunately, this is something that was not Earth facing and likely will not affect Earth's magnetic field, but we will continue to monitor this active region. And let's take a look too. We see that sunspot right there at the equatorial region is not yet numbered. So we're not calling it a sunspot, but they are watching it as an area of interest. And taking a look at the whole side of everything, there is that active region that's coming around the eastern limb. But guys, check this out when we get to the -90. Look at that. Some nasty coronal holes possible on the very possibility short-term future here. And we look at it again, we have a coronal hole that we see that's coming to Earth facing. And then just behind the eastern limb, we have a possibility for another active region, possibly a sunspot. I don't know. We'll see what happens as it emerges from the eastern limb. And a chance for some more coronal hole action, creating solar winds that will penetrate the Earth's atmosphere with cosmic rays and highly charged particles, obviously. So, a quiet sun, once again, the only thing we're watching is this current active region right Earth facing as we speak. Taking a look at our TSI for June, well, this looks like to be June 20th, 2019, coming in at 1360.63. So TSI kind of leveling off once again in the 0.6 values as before we've seen a little bit of a spike here over the past couple of weeks. So let's get right into it, folks. Back to grandsolarminimum.com. Summer snow in West Mongolia. Unexpected summer snowfall was in the southwestern mountainous parts of Bayangyugi province of Mongolia on June 28, 2019. According to their meteorological bureau out there, the completely surprising snowfall had a precipitation of about 1/10 of an inch of snow. It was brought to the country by a powerful cyclone from Siberia. Not a lot of information from this article, but just to point out, it wasn't 1/10. It was just barely 1/10 of an inch of snow, but the temperatures were at least cold enough for a slight accumulation. So that just gives you an idea of how cold we're seeing some areas that shouldn't be in any kind of winter season whatsoever. Thanks to Watchers.news for kind of giving us the heads up. France breaks all-time temperature record. I'm going to go ahead and report this in two different parts of our show tonight. First, I'm going to go ahead and give you the headline because we are fair and we'll show you both sides, or are we? And we'll get into that later. Severe heat wave affecting much of Europe this week brought allegedly record-breaking temperatures, including all-time highs in France. Meteo France has raised the hazardous weather warning up to red, the highest level. This is the first time the agency has activated a red alert since the system was introduced in 2003. There have been 15,000 heat-related deaths just since the past 16 years. Across the country, temperatures 45 degrees Celsius, that's 113 degrees Fahrenheit, marked the first time ever today. And we have a lot of temperatures here. The top one here, the 45.9 degrees, that's 114.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The second highest temperature was 113.7 degrees. Some very, very high records, folks. In fact, this one here allegedly smashed a record of 44.1 degrees as they smashed it with a 45.9 degrees Celsius. All right, that's pretty big. At the country level, Thursday, June 28th, is for the moment the hottest ever measured in June with an 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The thermal indicator average temperatures reached yesterday a value of, I think they might have put 15.4 above normal for the whole country. So, yes, these are hot temperatures, but 15.4 degrees above normal for the whole country is widespread heat wave. That's what we're looking at, guys. I got a comment about the heat wave in France. Folks are trying to use this as, well, this is definitely not lining up with what you guys are talking about. Of course not. It's summer. Nobody here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel or any of the Grand Solar Minimum channels that report on this are telling you that it's going to be freezing cold everywhere in the summer months in the northern hemisphere. Yes, we are seeing certain regions recording cold and snow, but again, we are at the very, very, very beginning, so we're not going to see those extreme widespread conditions of, an entire global phenomenon of, instant cooling overnight. But looking at the temperature anomaly map here through Thursday into Friday and just seeing how this heat dome just basically parks right over France and some of the UK, and then as we get closer to the weekend or early next week, we start to see a little bit cooler than average temperatures for the 1st of July, folks. And some of that purple is going to be near Denmark. I mean, they're going from one extreme to the next within a period of 7 to 8 days. So very interesting stuff on the horizon for Europe. Forecast for the hot weather now. And then after we get past this heat wave, we start to see temperatures below average in that region. Thanks again to Watchers.news. They're only reporting the information that's being given to them by the government agencies of these countries and cities that are telling us that we are breaking records in France. But I'll have more on that as we get into the show. And before I get into the net, I got Starman's Twitter feed here in the on our website. And it's funny sometimes, while I'm doing the show, there's always something on his Twitter feed that kind of gets me to laugh a little bit and maybe throws me off from the show. But this is a common picture I'm seeing on Twitter and Facebook, people joking about their sunburns or people who are getting sunburnt right now. And I work around a lot of people in the public, and I've noticed for this time of the summer, Now, granted, I live in an area where there's a lot of beach going. A lot of people go to the lake for leisure time, and I get that. But I've been here for a full year, so I remember how people looked last year. And I'm telling you, a lot more sunburns, a lot of people who are just like a dark brown, like they've been cooking in the sun for days. But I noticed a lot of joking out there about sunburns, but this is kind of catching my attention here. The UV rays are really harmful. Last summer, Father's Day weekend in Buffalo, me and the family, we all went to the beach for 2 hours, packed it up, went home. Later that night, Mari is treating a severe sunburn on my back, and I do believe everybody got a little red after that incident. But of all my life, I've always been a guy who kind of absorbs the sun and gets dark myself. To this day, I have a scar about the size of a basketball on my back that's still red from that sunburn of last summer. So there's proof right there, just not for me, but folks all over. The UVs are intense, and it's a little concerning, especially a guy like myself. I don't burn ever. I'm 41 years old, and I've never quite had the sun results on my skin the way I've seen it here in the last 12 to 16 months. All right, so thank you, Starman, for providing the show interrupter picture there. Awesome stuff there, buddy. Anyway, just kidding. We love you. All right, check out another deep earthquake, 6.4, North Mariana Islands. The deep earthquake was registered by the USGS at 6.4 at Northern Mariana. About 1551 UTC on June 28th. The agency reporting the depth of about 285 miles. And this is basically just basic information of the region and what we are monitoring right now. No information on any damage, of course, no tsunamis or anything like that. Just reporting on another 6.3 or higher earthquake that we seem to continue to get in the middle of the ocean. We're talking about earthquakes near New Zealand also, plus we have things popping off near Papua New Guinea. Speaking of Papua New Guinea, things popping off for sure. A high-level eruption yesterday at Manam Volcano, ash up to 50,000 feet. So let's recap. Thanks to this particular area, PNG, we have seen eruptions of 40 and 50 and 30,000 feet several times. Plus we had a 63,000 feet ash plume from Yilan. 2 major eruptions from that volcano. And we keep seeing eruptions out here. Again, this is part of the grand solar minimum effects of our planet with the weak magnetic field absorbing all this cosmic radiation, heating up our planet from the inside. Meanwhile, we're heating up in the core and expanding while we're cooling in the atmosphere, which will cause contraction. And yes, folks, that means more earthquakes and more volcanic eruptions. So here we have another one to talk about. June 27th. According to locals, eruption started with thundering noise around 1500 UTC. Satellite imagery acquired around 22 UTC. June 27th indicated that volcanic ash rising up to 40,000 feet, drifting west. The ash cloud was rising up to 50,000 as it detached from the volcano by 700 UTC on June 28th, continuing to move southwest. Traces of the ash are still about 15,000 feet up, are still discernible in multispectral satellite imagery. However, the signal is largely SO2 rich. Volcanic ash at 50,000 feet is expected to dissipate within 12 hours. And reports of ongoing 15,000 feet is further aided by superheated pyroclastic flow to the west and northeast of the crater. And here is that cloud coverage. I mean, look at this, guys. And we see the lines in the clouds, folks. I gotta believe that that's our magnetic field pushing down our atmosphere and making these clouds appear to have wavy lines in them. But just, again, I read somewhere today that we're looking at 80% cloud coverage of the world right now. I believe that. I believe that big time. Menem's eruption comes just 2 days after the powerful eruption at Yilan volcano, about 440 miles to the east. Yilan erupted on June 25th, about 2200. That's the 63,000 feet. The eruption forced people to evacuate, thousands. So Yilan, Menem, not too far apart, busting out several explosions now that have reached higher than 50,000 feet in one little area. You have to start wondering when the local climate is going to start seeing the effect of this. And maybe we'll take a look at some ocean temperatures too. We should start watching that on a daily basis, especially all the volcanic activity that we have going on right now. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the second part of our show tonight. Stick around.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, so let's get right into it, folks. The weekly crop report. Thank you, Mari, for setting it up for me like this, because this is my favorite part of the map. Now, starting to see a little bit of honesty here for the Midwest. 0.9 days of suitable field work in Ohio. We've had rainstorm after rainstorm after rainstorm out in Ohio. 2.2 days, same thing for Indiana. 2.2 days in Illinois, 2.1 days in Missouri, 3.1 days in Iowa, and Nebraska sadly has dropped to 3.3 days. So we were seeing, the last time we reported on this, there was a lot of green. There was a lot of green, a lot of light green. And since the last week's worth of weather, we have seen a drop in suitable days to work in the field, which now we are in a race with the freeze, basically. So we're hoping we can get this harvest done before we get our first hard freeze that kills crops. But I want to go ahead and move to some more important information about the report today too, because we've got, not only do we have a crop report here, we also have a letter talking about the acreage report as well. And that's very important. But let's go over our report card here. And that basically shows us what we have planted and what's emerging. And let's see if our numbers are getting any better. Now, remind you, this is a statistic that is as of June 23rd, 2019. And then I'm going to show you or tell you what the previous year percentage was when it came to corn planted. Now, right now, it looks like 95, 92, 91, 100%. A lot of folks are in the 90% of crop planted. But places like Ohio, 80% corn. At this time last year, 100% was planted. Last week, we had 68% only planted. So again, another increase, but we're still 20% behind on the planted part. So how does that translate to the what's growing right now? 66% of that 80% that's planted is emerged from the ground. I spoke to some people from back home in Ohio. The corn crops are suffering. They're barely visible. Another area that is struggling right now with corn crops as well is Michigan. This time last year, they had 96%. They have 91% of their fields planted, but only 63% has emerged. Indiana, probably a little bit better, but still 100% last year this time was 100% planted. This year we're at 91% planted, but that's misleading when we look at only 79% is emerged from the ground. This is corn now. So all these numbers that I'm reading to you, like Ohio and Indiana, Michigan, South Dakota, this time last year we were at 100% planted and growth was almost at 100% emerged. And we still have some states, Indiana, Illinois, 20% lower on their plants emerged from the ground at this point. Now, this only flies like this if we get enough dry days to keep this going, enough heat to keep this going. Some guy sent me a message. They need 3 weeks of continuous dry weather. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here, folks. There's not going to be 3 weeks anywhere where we don't see rain. That's just a fact right now. Soybeans, are they any better? Not really. Let's talk about Ohio. Only 65% planted right now in Ohio. Last year, this time, 99% was in the ground by now. How much has emerged in Ohio? 45% of the 65% has emerged from the ground. 93% last year this time was already emerged and growing. Illinois, they've planted 79%, 67% has emerged. Indiana, they've planted 75%, 56% of their soybeans have emerged. Folks, again, this is last year's numbers were near 100% planted and 100% emerged. These are staggering. Now, Michigan, your crop situation continues to get worse. Your corn numbers are down, and your soybean numbers are down almost 40%. Indiana, your soybean numbers are down almost 40%, as well as Illinois in the 30%. Ohio, as it has the worst right now, they're at 55% lower than what they were last year at this time. South Dakota, not much better. 100% was planted last year. 84% has been planted right now. And what's emerged from the ground, only 57% of the 84% of the soybeans that's been planted has emerged. This time last year, we saw 97% of the fields planted in South Dakota was growing. 18 states. This is the thing down here at the bottom that really freaks me out. 18 states planted 95% of last year's soybean acreage last year. These 18 states. Same thing with the corn. These 18 states are the same. 92% of the corn that is planted in this country comes from these 18 states. So, where am I going with this? Are we in crisis mode yet? No. But there are at least 6 to 8 states right now that are severely struggling with both crops of soybeans and corn. The rest of the states are starting to make some headway. Somewhat. But since 2016, we've said it's going to get worse each spring and each winter. And 2017 and spring and winter was definitely a lot worse than 16. And the same results for 2018. That's when we started seeing some record flooding. And then this year has just been off the charts for precipitation, for snowfall, for cold temperature records, flooding. Now we're having crop loss, not just from hurricanes or wildfires. We've lost crops this year from hail and from freezing, flooding. Even on suitable days to work in the field, we're still not getting temperatures where we need to be this time of year to get these crops going. So as bad as it is this year, can you imagine next year if the conditions continue to sharply decrease like they have? More cosmic rays next year, colder temperatures, more flooding rains. Same spots that got it this year are going to get it next year. It's not going to be, and I'll tell you something too about that. It seems like Mother Nature has given its fair share of rain to Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, all the mid-Atlantic states. Each part of the country from the central part of the United States all the way to the East Coast has had its fair share. And let's not forget the Northwest. They had a spat where they got tons of moisture too. I mean, they had a very busy rainy season, which still kind of extended a couple weeks longer than usual. The entire country is out of a drought. Remember, back in 2015, when we were promised that we were in a permanent drought situation because of man-made global warming. Now, we've got so much moisture and flooding, we can't even grow crops in certain states. Let's continue to move on with the report here. We're not done. Acreage report. This is a letter, guys. We have the link to the PDF. I'm only going to read the actual letter part because this is, I think, over 50 pages long, where we have, there's your contents, everything about the report on the acreage. And a lot of farmers are not happy with this letter. I'll go ahead and quickly read this. Corn planted for the area, all purposes, for 2019 is estimated at 92 million acres, up 3% from last year. Compared with last year, planted acreage is up unchanged 40 of the 48 estimating states. Area harvested for grain at 83.6 million acres is up 2% from last year. There is no way that this statement is true in any shape or form. There is no way. I just showed you where corn is down in several states where it's not 100% planted yet. Some states are reporting 90% planted. A lot of the states are reporting 70 to 85% planted. And then there's a handful of states that aren't even in the 50s and 60% on growth. I think these guys are being a little naive. I think they're hoping for a dry spell and a long summer into the early fall months. I hope they're right. Soybean planted for the area of 2019 is estimated at 80 million acres, down 10% from last year. This represents the lowest soybean planted acreage in the United States since 2013. Compared with last year, planted acreage is down in all 29 states. Yeah, 29 states down in soybean. So I'm not an expert on farming. Ice Age Farmer would probably be a great guest to have on to talk about this kind of stuff. But to me, this just doesn't seem accurate. I mean, we know a lot of farmers missed the corn planting deadline and are trying to switch to soybeans in a hurry. So we know that areas have been flooded out since February, and more people are trying to plant soybean because they've already missed the date for corn. But this report says that soybean planting is down 10%. Well, I do believe that it is down. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't see how it's possible that corn is up 3% and soybean is down 10%. All wheat planted area for 2019 is estimated at 45.6 million acres, down 5% from 2018. This represents the lowest all wheat planted on record since 1919. Wow. Lowest all wheat planted area on record since records began in 1919. This year 100 years from when we first started keeping record, 2019 is the lowest. And how much you want to bet that 2020 and 2021 rival these numbers? This is only the beginning. That's what I'm saying, guys. This is only the beginning. If this is the record year for the first time ever for these numbers to be down 5%, and that's a record, think about next year. All cotton planted in the area for 2019 estimated 13.7 million acres, 3% below last year. Upland area is estimated at 13.4 million acres, down 3%. So everything from wheat, soybean, and cotton is down, but corn is up. That's what this USDA report is saying. There's a lot of people out there that don't agree with that. And they have a lot of reason for that. Like I said, I talked to several farmers, and a lot of them call this hogwash. In fact, Matt shares with me some AgriTalk podcast. The interesting thing about that podcast he sent me last week, they had a guy who is working to put this acreage report out. And they were asking some really tough questions about what's going on with the plant reporting and all that. I'll tell you something, guys. This guy's voice was trembling with his answers, as if he didn't feel comfortable in his own skin given the answers that he gave. And it to me, my opinion, I think this report is, the numbers are cooked a little bit based on guessing and speculation. I don't think they've done a thorough report. I think that either A, they don't have the manpower to conduct a full report like they should. B, they are downplaying this to ease fears and try to control the stock market. Or C, that this is telling the truth. I highly doubt it. I guess time will tell. And the thing that worries me the most, like I said, it's not whether these crops start growing and get some heat, but what happens when we get a September freeze? Second week of September. It could happen. The hype leading up to today or yesterday's report was met with bearish reaction in corn. As we already discussed, it's up 91.7 million acres. The farmer survey results were higher than the acreage number USDA released in its last crop production report, coming as a shock to the trade. However, analysts say the late planted crop means acreage surveys as of June 1st are already out of date. You hear that? This report probably should never have been published due to extenuating circumstances, says Arlon Sutterman. Sorry if I mispronounced your name there, bud. USDA admitted that the numbers are out of date. So why was the report made? And I'll tell you why. Because these farmers are angry right now and they want answers. They're scared about their futures. They're not getting straight answers about this. Buried in Friday's report was a USDA announcing it will resurvey corn acreage in 13 states, planted acreage of soybeans in 14 states, and just cotton in Arkansas. Those findings will be released in August. So until then, we got to sit and wonder for another month. If you know a farmer, give them a big hug. Shake their hands. If you got some free time, go give them a hand. Help them. I was talking to a friend of mine from back home, and he was discussing how some of the richer farmers are stepping up and trying to help some of these farmers who don't have the funds that they have, and they're trying to loan out equipment that will help plant in fields that aren't really workable right now. That's encouraging to hear. But to hear any farmer out there who owns equipment, we all know these things cost millions of dollars. And it's a risk to run them on your property and not have a major repair to be done. The fact that they're going out onto other farmers' properties with their own equipment, being paid now, I'm not saying this is free, they're being paid, but it says a lot how dire the situation is when you're taking your $1 million equipment and taking a chance of possibly damaging your equipment in someone else's field. So that right there to me, for farmers, look, the money's tight. And there's no way that doesn't cross their mind before they pull off a stunt like that. So that's alarming to me, first of all. But here we are. We're going to have 14 states of the 18 states that are planting soybeans. They're going to get resurveyed. And the other 13 states will also be in the corn. 13 more states will be resurveyed. I'll tell you the states that won't be surveyed. That's Texas, Tennessee. Okay? Those two states definitely will not get resurveyed. Probably Kansas. And I don't know, maybe Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been in a lot of water, so I need more details. I need more reports about that area. I know there's no way in Missouri they're not going to be re-examined. Arkansas as well, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. I mean, that makes sense to me. Even though Friday's report would be resurveyed, Sutterman said that there are some key takeaways from Friday. It does still tell us some things, he says. It kind of confirms what we've been hearing in late May, that a lot of farmers saw what was coming. And if we could possibly get corn acres in, we want to get corn in at the expense of soybeans. They were returning soybean seed where it was drying up to do so. And this survey tells us that was pretty much true across the Midwest. Now it will never quit raining. So they've had trouble getting those acres in, but it probably makes it difficult to see prevent planted of 10 million to 15 million. Says I still feel pretty good about my 7 million prevent plant acres. Again, Bennett says that this crop is in trouble in certain areas. Yes, we got some acres planted that we planted in tough conditions, so the conversation moving forward is going to be more about the yield than anything. And I think that your national yield at 166 bushels per acre that was printed on June report is still plenty high enough in their opinion. We'll see. That number is going down, and we'll just have to keep a close eye on this. I'm going to continue to follow these ag podcasts. They're wonderful. It gives you the insight of these two presenters are great guys, and they're fighting for the people out there. They want answers like these farmers want answers. A lot of these folks are still waiting on insurance payments from previous damage, crop damage from last year. Some haven't received their aid yet from 18, and 19 is already awful. So, a lot to be watching, guys. We're not getting honest answers about temperatures. We're not getting honest answers about crop. And this is why I'm saying we're not getting honest answers about temperatures. So, what's up with that? And Tony Heller have brought some things to our attention. Here is one of the locations where we have a weather station that reported a record-breaking temperature in France, right next to the highway. Baking. It looks like there's some concrete in that area. Same with this over here. The biggest one, this one was from Scotland last year, where the ice cream truck was parked next to the weather station that also left the truck on the whole day, and that's where we recorded our hottest day of the year last year in Scotland. Dr. Wahid Udden on Twitter, August 1930 News, France heat wave. There was a lot more of them back in the 30s, by the way. 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The names of Australian newspapers that published it: The Telegraph, Queensland, and the Western Argus. The Evening News, Sydney, 14 people died in the UK. So this has happened before. And the reason why Dr. Wahid Udden had tweeted this is that we were not at record level CO2 back in 1930. Our parts per million were in the mid 200s to low 300s, possibly. Right now we sit at a record 415 parts per million. So 1930, we were pretty cold. I'd say back then we had more wildfires, heat waves, and droughts. But back then, we weren't industrialized like we are now. So how could we blame man, or how could we even explain the weather and that heat wave, just like we had just now? It's a heat wave, folks. It's not climate change. It's a heat wave. We'll probably get a couple of those here in the United States this summer, no doubt. So a good tweet here of where not only has this happened before, but it was hotter in France. 122 degrees Fahrenheit. We're talking about 114 degrees, folks. Again, CO2 emissions were low. But my favorite part that Tony, and by the way, we were going to show a video or two of Tony's about these temperatures. And the one temperature that he uses, actually, I'll just go back to Watchers. I'll point it out. I can't pronounce the name of this area. So the very top record here, the 45.9 degrees, 114.6, that temperature is being disputed right now because two reasons. The real feel in that area was 45.9 degrees Celsius. The actual temperature was around 44.1. That ties the record. However, the alleged area that reported these temperatures was on top of a slated roof in France. So you tell me, guys, if you have a weather temperature sensor on top of a slated roof in the middle of the summer, people who work on roofs know how hot it gets on a shingle roof. How hot does it get up there with those tiles? Is there some kind of cooling mechanism involved with hot clay? I doubt it. So just like all these weather stations out there that report these record-breaking temperatures at the airport, where all the jet exhaust and the engines and the all-day baking of the sunlight into the black pavement, and then they've got this little fenced-off area that's right next to the runway that is in the middle of jets flying over with their jet engines blowing their exhaust right on the sensors as they land onto the runway. It's the same thing, guys. This is cherry picking. This is no different than opening up the oven at 450 degrees and sticking a thermometer in there. And yep, it's 450 degrees in there because it's an oven. Yep, it's going to be the hottest temperature ever when you record it from the top of a roof. When you record it from an area that has nothing but pavement that absorbs the sunlight all day, bakes in the sun, radiates the heat to the sensors that are only about 3 to 4 feet off of the ground. I'm not saying it wasn't hot in France. I just wish that we could get straight answers about temperature records. Because people don't see, like Watchers.news, I'm not accusing you of trying to hide anything, but you're not. I'd like to see where the location of the weather station that recorded these temperatures. I want to see every time they post a record temperature, cold or hot, I want to know where that device is located. And I think then people could understand, all right, so it was hot in the middle of a grassy field. Okay, I think people would accept an all-time hot record if it was recorded that way versus being something on pavement, cement, slated roof, shingled roof on top of a building. We've seen that too, with the black rubber mats that cover the membrane that covers the roofs on these commercial buildings. Those are black. Absolutely ridiculous. So we'll continue to investigate, as Tony Heller is already on top of it, and so is What's Up With That. And I think here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, we are also skeptical of this report of record heat in France. And another article from What's Up With That. Contrary to global warming predictions, Great Lakes water levels now at record highs. It is a truism that any observed change in nature will be blamed at some experts on global warming, climate change, climate crisis, climate emergency. When the Great Lakes water levels were unusually low from approximately 2000 through 2012 or so, this was pointed as evidence that global warming was causing Great Lakes to dry up. Take this example photo here from the National Geographic from Lake Michigan. The text was called Lake Bottom, as if Lake Michigan had dried up. Average depth, by the way, is 279 feet at Lake Michigan. Then in a matter of 2 years, low lake levels were replaced with high lake levels. The cause, analysis is going to be right here where the link is, a combination of unusually high precipitation, contrary to the global warming theory, and an unusual cold winter that caused the lakes to mostly freeze over, reducing evaporation. Makes sense. Makes sense. The graph shows it all. I don't have to read the rest of this. You guys can clearly see here at the end where they label the lakes Superior, Huron, Michigan, Erie, and Ontario. We see the trends of lake levels back on the rise. Back on the rise since 2012. But global warmist alarmists out there were telling you that the lakes were drying up because of global warming, and global warming supposedly is getting worse by the year. In fact, we have people like AOC telling us that if we don't do something about carbon emissions in 12 years, we will probably see the end of the world. Now, I'd like to point out during Valentina Zarkova's interview talking about global catastrophe with climate, maybe the doctor is just a very optimistic person and believes that we can somehow scathe the dangers of this grand solar minimum and thrive and get through it and continue to thrive as a civilization. I hope she's right. There's a lot of scary things that are associated with the grand solar minimum, not just weather. The space weather is a definite concern. But what happens with the climate is a trickle down to our food, to our economy, to our sane. But these global warming alarmists have told us that we're going to die in 12 years if we exceed a 1.5 degrees Celsius. And Valentina Zarkova is telling us no. That 2.5 degrees Celsius increase of temperature from now until 2600. All right, that's 0.5 degrees per century. 0.5 degrees. We've cooled 0.5 degrees in the last 3 years, guys. All right, so that's how little warming we're talking about. That's natural because of the SIM, the solar inertial motion. I think I said that right. Zarkova showed us that in her paper, that it was a natural cause from this orbital motion. And again, 0.5 degrees Celsius per 100 years, folks. And it's not impacted by man. But the point I'm trying to make is that the global warming alarmists who keep giving us these deadlines, who keep telling us that the world's going to end, and then we keep showing you evidence that the world's not going to end. Are we facing some very serious challenges? Absolutely. Is it possible if we don't handle this correctly, people could die? Absolutely. But if we work together and continue to learn every day, there is a good chance that we can pull together and get through this. It's really up to, and there's a lot of people out there that may agree with me on this, and there's a lot of people out there that disagree with me on this. There might be people out there who think closed communities are necessary to survive. Militia groups, smaller groups to take on other groups strategically throughout the next 10 to 20 years. I don't know. There's some crazy theories out there about what's going to happen. Nevertheless, though, we continue to educate ourselves, we continue to prepare, and it's time to start walking the walk. Or walking the talk, yeah. We've talked a lot. It's time to start preparing, guys. I almost wonder if Valentina's paper that's accepted finally is information that could have made a huge impact 2 years ago or 4 years ago. But the reluctantness and the closed-mindedness of our modern day science has hurt humanity. In fact, modern science has done a disservice to us by not allowing these people like Zarkova and others to express their ideas and their findings through their own research. And let's remember, guys, Valentina Zarkova was not sought after to do this research. She did this out of curiosity with a calculation she figured out one time. And then it just grew from there. Now look at her work is revealing something that could change the way we view climate science for the next 100 years or so. This might be the point where we actually turn the tide and get this man-made global warming theory out of the way and start making real decisions about real situations that we're going to be faced with very, very soon. We'll leave a link on our website, thegramsolarminimum.com. One more article from What's Up With That? A surprising late June chill broke records for lowest temperatures and made life miserable for many across the world. From Denver, Colorado in the United States to Melbourne in Australia, the mercury dropped precipitously. Many people in Colorado woke up to the first day of the snow on the first day of summer. The coldest day in 90 years on the first day of snow, up to 2 feet, fell in some places, making authorities issue a winter weather advisory on the first day of summer. Yeah. Global warming, though, folks. You're doing it. Remember that. Man is causing it. Yeah, right. I'm kidding on that, folks. Don't record that clip. I don't mean that. I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic. If I was being serious, you would know it. And we wouldn't be talking about snow, 2 feet of it on the first day of summer in Colorado. National Weather Service reported the coldest maximum temperature during the second half of June since 1992 at Chicago O'Hare Airport. Again, it might have been colder than that if they're taking the record temperature from the Chicago O'Hare Airport. On the other side of the world, Australia saw many cities record cold for the first few weeks of winter. Melbourne on June 23rd recorded its lowest maximum for the date since 1985. And back in the Northern Hemisphere, central England experienced similar historic lows in June, although the temperature was forecasted to pick up the following week due to a heat wave, known as a weather event that happens from time to time in summers. But the cooling observed is not just limited to the surface temperatures. There has been remarkable cooling in the global oceans, especially in the Atlantic, which last year was very noticeable, especially in the North Atlantic. The Pacific as well. This was totally unexpected, as the scientists had forecasted a strong warming in the oceans for this month, a weather condition called El Nino. How is El Nono doing right now, by the way? Let me show you. Look at that. You just got to look at it. We are neutral. The INSO meter, what's up with that, probably needs to be updated. We are now barely below baseline for the El Nino region of 3.4 at a negative 0.030. El Nino train is shutting down. This was supposed to be predicted to last through the summer and into early fall. I'm now seeing other reports that this will be a neutral event through the last few months of summer and then sharply moving into a La Nina. Oh, how convenient. La Nina heading into the beginning of the grand solar minimum. Guys, stay right there. We'll be right back with our weather news.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, heads up. Northeast, severe thunderstorms may develop here in parts of the Northeast from Saturday on into Sunday. I know I have outdoor plans on Sunday, hoping that we can get through the weekend. It's going to be tricky. A cold front will track Northeast on Saturday. Scattered storms are expected. A few could be severe. Cooler conditions to follow this system on Sunday. No thanks. Severe thunderstorms are expected to fire up in parts of the Northeast Saturday night. Currently, right now, as we speak, cold front moves through the region. Hot and humid conditions will combine with the approaching cold front to create enough instability to result in formation of thunderstorms along and ahead of the front. Happening now, showers and thunderstorms are rumbling across parts of Pennsylvania and also the mid-Atlantic and also southern Canada. Right now, just south of Pittsburgh is getting pounded pretty good. Let's go ahead and take a look at windy too while we're at it, guys. This is our current conditions. Go ahead and refresh this just to make sure we're getting the most current conditions. And yeah, it's just south of Pittsburgh is getting pummeled with storms. Eastern to southeastern Ohio, you're starting to see some storms now as well. Spotty showers out near Richmond, Indiana. Nothing looking too serious. Got a lot of lightning on the border of Indiana, Illinois, but mainly upstate New York above Lake George and further, getting some heavy showers as we speak throughout New Hampshire. Massachusetts, you're in the clear for now. Hartford, Connecticut, also clear. Moving down a little further south, looking at Atlanta, some showers and thunderstorms approaching. Now we got storms in the northeast moving southeast, and we got storms in the southeast moving northeast to northwest. So we got two low pressure systems spinning around. Dallas just had a heavy dose of rain and lightning, but boy, the lightning strikes near Dallas. Houston, you're expected some shower activity as well. Let's go ahead and zoom in here and check out what kind of lightning some of these storms are producing, especially here near the Dallas area. And boy, it is lightning up. Waco, Texas, you're right smack dab in the way of this coming storm here. Lots of lightning near this area. We'll find out if we had any reports of power outages or any structural damage due to these highly charged storms that we have right now. Let's get back to our weather report. Stormy forecast. Strong to severe storms are likely into the evening into tonight. Damaging winds and gusts are the primary concern, but large hail and an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out. I think they have to put that every weather forecast because that's what it just feels like. The chance for severe storm stretches from western Maine to northwest or to northern West Virginia and eastern Ohio. However, the greatest risk of severe thunderstorms is in the area from Washington, D.C., and central Pennsylvania into southern New England. So talking about those two systems that we were just looking at up here near Pittsburgh. Go ahead and move this up. Sorry, folks. This is one area of concern tonight. Moving into West Virginia, into Virginia as well, near the D.C. area. And then, of course, upstate New York, where we are seeing much stronger storms in Burlington, Plattsburgh, parts of Indian Lake should expect showers soon. This is all staying to the north so far of upstate New York, like the Albany capital region, but it does appear that we will see some shower action later this evening. All right, so let's go over to GFS real quick. Take a look at the outlook. Here's Sunday. This is overnight tonight. The area gets inundated with showers in the northeast. Nothing heavy, nothing too concerning. I think most of the day we stay dry in New York until the late evening hours as we move into overnight into Monday. And that's when the rain will finally clear out of the northeast into Monday. Some more storms and showers developing on the backside of this in Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, areas that don't need the rain, but we'll get some more. South Dakota, Wyoming, Denver, looking at some shower action. This is July 1st. So just the atmosphere constant. Look at that in 2 days. The same area right here, and I'll put my cross right there. Watch this area. This is Monday, July 1st. It goes away, reemerges by the 2nd. It's almost like the atmosphere just reloads the same areas that had the storms and showers. So watch out, Colorado, Kansas, Northwest Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, parts of Iowa, as these storms die out overnight Tuesday into Wednesday and kind of get a little bit more strength on Wednesday, July 3rd. Very rainy in southern Florida. Let me move this up so y'all can see that. Gulf Coast, Louisiana, also expecting shower activity. More heavy rain on the Mexico-Texas border. Showers move back into the Ohio Valley by July 3rd and on July 4th. Lots of rain across the Midwest, into the Northeast, across the Atlantic states. And by Thursday evening, for the most part, I think the fireworks probably should go off without a hitch. We do see some scattered rain showers across the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, but nothing really heavy, nothing serious. So the rest of the country, Montana, some showers, North Dakota, Minnesota and South Dakota with some showers, but the rest of the country is going to remain pretty dry. So I think the forecast for 4th of July evening, let's take a look at our temperatures while we're here. Pretty warm, pretty normal. Except for the Northwest. You guys are struggling to be in the 70s in certain parts. Montana, 59 and 57 degrees for the daytime highs. into the evening. So this looks like a pretty decent 4th of July forecast for the bulk of the country here. Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, even with the rain, you're still looking at temperatures in the mid-80s or even higher. All right, let's go back to our precipitation forecast, and then we'll move on to some temperatures also. We're just in next week, guys. July 5th, more rain, reloads in the same locations. Here's this area that we always can see almost on a weekly and daily by daily day, where the straight line of moisture from Mexico to Canada reoccurring. South Dakota, Nebraska, more rain for you. Ohio Valley, more chances of rain by the weekend of after 4th of July. Those chances continue on Saturday for most of the Midwest. Right there in smack dab in the middle of it is Oklahoma, Kansas. Again, this is not saturating rains, but we are still getting these chances of spotty, and there are pockets of heavier showers to fall. Like, let's take a closer look. We got some pockets that are producing 4 to 6 inches of rain possibly in North Carolina. In this area right here, we've seen lots of flooding here already. Rain that we don't need to see over in this area as well, near the Mississippi, all flowing downhill. So the pattern still remains rainy, and this is what concerns me. Crops, where they need 3 weeks of dry weather. And this is a 16-day outlook, and we aren't seeing that. We are tracking a low-pressure system around mid-July that shows some signs of development right around the Jacksonville, Florida area. The low pressure initially starts in that region and then kind of drifts off the coast by the 13th right here. Watch it kind of intensify as it goes off further into the Atlantic right there. Now, believe it or not, the waters are warm enough right there to support any kind of action, but this storm is going to continue to tread to the northeast. And folks, I can tell you right now, those waters are a lot colder. And again, look here on the 15th of July. I just showed you the same exact pattern of moisture. Now it's a little bit further back west, but that same line going across from Canada to Texas to Mexico. Moving ahead, July 15th, 16th. So our GFS outlook is not giving us no more than 3 dry days in a row in particular areas that need to be able to work in the fields. Every other day, there is a chance of rain in our United States farmlands. Ohio Valley, Kentucky, Tennessee, the South, Texas. I mean, even New Mexico's got a good shot of getting some decent rains over the next few days. That's not really the rainy season period. Weak disturbance in the Pacific heading up towards the Baja region too as we get close to mid-July. So we've got a system in the Atlantic and a system in the Pacific, but both of them look like they fade away or weaken as we get closer to mid-July. So right now, other than Alvin, we don't have any tropical action right now. Let's take a look at temps real quick. What are they going to look like? It's July. Let's hope it's hot, right? Looks good for the Midwest and the Central Plains. 80s. Some of them are low 80s. Look at Kansas, 97 degrees on July 5th. We definitely start to feel like summer in the areas that should feel like summer. Good news. But Montana and the Northwest, and then we got a cold front that just kind of drops down on July 7th. Yeah, July 7th. I didn't mean to yell, but when I see something that excites me in the wrong way, it kind of gets my voice modulated. Daytime highs on July 8th. The temperature is dropping throughout the day in the Ohio Valley. July 8th, high of 70 degrees near Toledo. Solano, Ohio, Bellefontaine, 70. 69 in Strongsville near Cleveland. Asheville. 66 in Indiana and near Chicago, 70. Upstate New York, 68 degrees. July 8th. Plenty of heat in the Southwest, no doubt. Big heat wave, but that's the Southwest. That's the desert. It's supposed to get hot, middle of July. Daytime highs for July 8th, 80s. Sorry, guys, I was reading the wrong temps. Those are the lows. That didn't make sense. Still cooler, though. Still cooler across the mid-states here on July 8th. 72 degrees in Illinois is not normal for them. They're a lot warmer than that on July. Same with Ohio. Mid-70s across southwest Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, it's 76 degrees. Moving forward into July. Some chilly nights in the northwest. You can see where that next cold front is. States like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, parts of Nebraska. Look at that. 70 for your high on July 10th. How's that for your crops? Iowa, 66. And then you can clearly see that line where the cold front is here, where that extreme heat and summer heat is trapped here. And right here, we're staying cool. 2 reasons. Rain is one. Flooding is the other. And of course, these cold fronts that are coming down here in the summertime, middle of July, I mean, that's normal, right? But Weather Channel did say this area right here was going to be cooler than average for the month of July. And up here in the East Coast, we're going to have slightly above warmer temps across the coasts. And the same thing in the West Coast as well, up and down the coast. Across the South, pretty much right where this line is right here, we're going to see constant heat. So big giant smiley face, basically. Weather Channel put this out, by the way. July 11th, still much of the country dipping down in the low 60s as lows for mid-July. High temperatures, July 12th, July 10th. Look at this. 77 degrees. Northeast Ohio, 76 in Des Moines, Iowa. Wichita, Kansas, 79 degrees. That's not warm. Not for July 11th. Jeez. I'm just looking at these temperatures here. Much of the United States, I mean, the South, the Southwest, you're getting your heat. And then we got this region across the middle of the part of the country, too, where those storms fire up. Makes sense. But Sunday, July 14th, those were daytime highs right here, guys. 71 degrees in Pennsylvania, 72 in upstate New York, 74. Again, Ohio, north of Columbus, you guys are going to stay in the mid-70s. And that's hard for you to believe right now because you're talking about 90-degree weather right now. Finally, by mid-July, we start to see summer rearing its ugly head again in the south, still staying in Texas and the southwest and California. But again, July 15th, middle of Kansas, near Hays, Kansas, 73 degrees. Norton, Kansas, near 75 degrees. Low 80s in Nebraska, mid-70s in North Dakota and South Dakota. Iowa, mid-70s. They are not getting the sufficient heat these farmers need, folks, on top of the moisture that we're getting as well. So the crop report would be okay if we had a lot of dry weather on the way. But that's not the case. That's not the case at all. Let's take a look at, let's see, let's go to Europe. Let's say hello to everybody in Europe real quick. Guys over there across the pond, we love your support. Thank you for tuning into this channel. You guys looking at some rain relief, hopefully after this big old heat wave going into the first month of July. Pretty relatively dry across the UK. Some showers on the 7th, moving across France as well. And really, I wouldn't say it's as active as the United States, but we do start to pick up moisture patterns towards the middle of July. Let's see what we can see about their temperatures here, as Starman keeps me pretty updated. Looks like things kind of start to go back to normal around the beginning of July, and then cooler temperatures prevail. Staying hot in Spain and Portugal. Parts of France will warm up again towards late week of the first week of July, but relatively staying pretty normal across Europe, what is now experiencing a pretty hot set of days back to normal temperatures as well for the UK, Denmark as well. But again, we go from extreme of super hot to back to normal or slightly above normal for July. So we know there's 2 parts of the world right now that are looking at normal to below normal temperatures for the month of July. Let's go over to Australia, take a quick look at the moisture, and then we'll take a look at your temperatures as well. I'll just go ahead and push play on this. A high pressure system parked right in the center of Australia, keeping you guys dry for the most part until we get to around July 4th, and just a storm off the coast that will affect the southwestern, possibly the southeastern part of Australia. But really, the southwestern coast gets hit a couple times going into mid-July. Other than that, staying pretty dry in Australia for the first 2 weeks of July. Let's take a look at the temperature anomalies. Unfortunately, I don't have a map that will show us the actual temperature readings, but still we see that divide of cold in the western part of Australia, even parts of the southeastern Australia that's usually a subtropical climate. We are seeing some colder air moving in later in July, almost mid-July. So guys, lots going on. Like I said, last summer, I remember, and here's a look at the temperatures too, by the way, just so you have the proof. El Nino is below baseline. The North Atlantic is struggling to be at 2 above baseline, 0.2 above baseline. But what I was saying was that last year in the summertime, I think Mari and I had to scratch and scrape to put up content for a show last summer at this time. This year, it's off the charts. There's so much going on. We don't get to cover it all, and sometimes we undersell certain stories because we want to get other things included as well. So I don't think there's any disagreement right now with the idea of a grand solar minimum starting now. From what we've learned, from what we know about cosmic rays and how Zarkova's work is matching everything right now, I feel pretty confident about what's ahead. What I don't feel confident about is if we've done enough to protect ourselves as individuals and a society. These next 3 to 5 years could be seriously rough on our pockets, the economy, and some starvation could be possible if we continue to see these lousy conditions for planting. Last year was a late planting. It was a little later than 17. This year is a lot later than 18 and a lot more scarier. And you're hearing it now in the farmers' voices. You're hearing it in these agriculture podcast hosts, and you're hearing it in people that are doing these reports. They're not sure. Their voices are shaky. It's time to take notice, folks. Mari, you want to come over here and tell everybody hello and yes, welcome any newcomers tonight? It's been a pretty decent show, I think, for a Saturday night. We usually don't do Saturday nights, but we had a few things we wanted to discuss tonight.
I got some stuff in the way here.
Awesome.
I've been moving stuff. How you doing, Jake? You did a good show tonight.
Thirsty.
Well, I'm here. We have lots of people in the chat. We've had people discussing all sorts of things. We have Ian and Starman, Rain. Matt Bros came in a little late. He didn't hear your shout out.
Thank you, brother, for everything. Your footage, your comments. He's explaining to me what soil armor is. So I really appreciate all the input you're giving us.
I'd like to thank Daniel for the super chat. He is in Palm Springs. And let's go through what we got here. Matthew Phillips says, every day is a victory. If you can just do a little prep, whatever you can do is a small step to make bigger steps. I really like that, how he said that. That's a great attitude. It is sort of scary getting started into prepping, and it is true, just a little bit by a little bit each day, and that's how you get started. Kid meteorologist stopped in.
What's up, buddy?
We love him. An aspiring meteorologist. We just love him. He is looking at, I believe, Invest 94E, 90% chance to form. And he says it looks like the GFS is saying it's going to hit near Hawaii.
I saw that system that he's talking about. And, with El Nino dying, the wind shear is going to be less. He could be right. We'll have to wait and see.
You have to watch that. Thank you for talking about that in the chat. TSM, we love you, David Birch.
My brother from another mother.
You have no idea. Anyway, he was saying that you can fish with hemp seeds, and I was like, are you crazy?
Good.
And I'm like, how? Hemp seeds are so small, and basically you just throw in a bit in the water to sort of bait the water, I guess, to get the fish to come and then throw your line in. Clever, huh?
Yeah, I did not know that.
Interesting. Thank you, Starman. See, he's not just about the sun and stuff. Look at that. He's a fisherman. I never knew that. All right, let's see what else I got. Michael said, why did that USDA report sound like something out of George Orwell's 1984?
I'm telling you.
I mean, true, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of scary that they can actually put a report like that out and expect us to believe it.
Oh, they just, okay, yeah, well, that's great, 92%, all right.
Considering they put out a weekly report.
Right.
And if you can read, it's very clear we're in a dire situation right now. And I just don't believe it. It's just unreal to me.
And they want to make us wait another month to reevaluate. It's like, I like I said, hug a farmer. If you know a farmer, hug them. They need a hug right now. They probably need money too. So what else you got there, Mar?
Minnesota Farm Checker, corn is looking decent in southern Minnesota.
Good to hear.
One of the owners he works for tried to help a guy who was losing his farm, and he wound up killing himself.
Oh, jeez.
So that is absolutely horrific to hear, but that is the reality in this farming industry. Farmers are probably one of the top.
Not just here either.
No, this is worldwide. India is the awful.
Worst. Yeah.
Like India, I hear of farmer suicide all the time. Yep. It is just heartbreaking. It is not an easy profession to be in, being a farmer, and it's such a important role in humanity to have farmers that provide food. We so much take for granted our farmers, and it's just heartbreaking for me to hear that farmers here in the States are that low, where they just would rather take their lives. It's so sad. And I'm afraid that's not going to be the last one, that we're going to see more of that, unfortunately. Awful. I know I'm like a Debbie Downer now. I feel like that's it. No. Watcherman on the wall says, try growing Chicago Hardy fig. Hers are going very good, and they grow outside and okay in the winter. So that's interesting. People were talking about what store is good, what's nutritional, what they like, what they don't like. There's a lot of people who like honey in the chat. So honey is very nutritional and stocks well, stores well. Stock up on that. Stock up on what you can. Michael McEwen also said he drove through Illinois and into Indiana. The corn looks anemic. It's light green and sickly. There was another person, it was Howard. He has corn all over in Virginia, and it's 6 foot tall and everywhere. So that's some good news. We love hearing that. Yeah,
that is.
So I don't know. There's so many people in the chat. I'm sorry if I'm not giving you a shout out right now. It's a lot to take in right now. It's busy in the chat. So thank you all for joining us. Please like and share this. It's hard to get the information out. I do a search on Facebook to see where our information's being shared, and it's hard to find us around. I don't know what it is, the algorithms or what, Jake.
Mari, thank you, by the way, for your report. And
anytime, Jake.
Thanks for keeping everybody sane and behaving themselves. And I want to leave tonight, before we leave, make a quick comment too. I saw a couple people who are asking about the sunspots. Do you just throw them out the window now that Zarkova comes out with this paper that she has? And the answer to me is no. Sunspots are still part of this theory, this tracking of weather events and what's going to happen with our solar cycle. Just because we're focusing on the magnetic fields of the sun doesn't mean that sunspots all of a sudden are just thrown out the window. A weaker magnetic field from the sun produces lower sunspot counts. A stronger sun's magnetic field produces more sunspots. We still use that correlation of more sunspots, more heating, less sunspots, less solar activity, obviously is cooling. So I thought I'd end the night show with that explanation. Because I see that question a lot in our comments, and I don't think that means that we don't look at sunspots anymore. We do. We still follow that. We still are going to keep track of that trend. That's not going to change. Again, if you haven't read the paper, we have it linked on our website. Mari is going to have Valentina Zarkova's website up very soon. It will be attached to our website, and you will be able to view Zarkova's work and where she came up with the theory, how she came up. Everything's going to be on this website. But so we encourage everybody, if you've read the paper, read it again. If you've read it twice, read it a third time. I'm still working on it my second time through right now, and I'm going to read it a third time. There's so much going on in this paper that there's no way that any of you out there could absorb every bit of information on the first time through. Point blank. Mari's got something else?
I'm going to also drop a link in the chat in the description. David Dubine has a book that he released.
Thank you, Mari.
So I'm going to go ahead and put that out. It's called Climate Revolution. It's his ebook. It's just another tool about the grand solar minimum to get the information out. David has spent years with his research.
Adapt 2030.
He's a wealth of knowledge. He has charted this throughout history. So I encourage you guys to check that out, and we'll go ahead and I'll put the link in the description for you guys to definitely support his work and his book. Thank
you, Mari, for I thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm telling you, without Mari, I don't know where this channel will be. We'd probably be talking about baseball. So thanks again, Mari. Again, support Adapt 2030, David Dubine, his new book. We are dropping the link in the chat right now. But for those of you who just tuned in, for those of you who tuned in for tonight's show tonight, thank you very much for your support. We appreciate your time, and we hope you got something out of the video. Guys, we'll be back live Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, with another live update of Grand Solar Minimum News, and we'll hopefully get you to start solar updates once again on Monday as well. It was just a busy week last week with the Zarkova interview and the editing for that, and just jam-packed full of information. And guys, since the interview, we keep finding new revelations about what's happening, and things just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're going to be here for it to report the entire thing for as long as we can. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in once again. Please like and share. Subscribe to our channel. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and of course at thegrandsolarminimum.com, our official website. Until next time, folks, we will talk soon. Have a great weekend.